that evolved independently and sort of put together, it should have been worse. They should have doubled. They shouldn't have subtracted to zero, et cetera. And furthermore, when you look at that, you say, well, why were these in there at all? It turns out those irregularities are just exactly the regularities that you need in order for the focusing mechanism, the accommodation, as you look at something far and something near, which I don't do anymore, but the younger people do. But that mechanism needs a feedback to tell it which way to go. It needs the sign. And by having that combination of aberrations or irregularities that compensate for each other, if something's out of focus, the brain can tell which way to go. And so it gives it that information. Without that, it would have to just sort of hunt constantly. But this way, it knows exactly which way to go every single time. And so as we look at something we think is more or less a problem, oh yeah, why do we have aberrations? Can't we get rid of those? We discovered that it serves another purpose, which was equally important. In fact, maybe it was more important. And there's, to me, those are really good evidences of design. If I was designing an optical system, to this day, in fact, most vision scientists will agree with this, we could not design an optical system that works as well as the eye. And it was really interesting to be at these papers and listen to my co-author on one of these, who's I'm sure a confirmed atheist, although I haven't, just because of other things he said, talk about how amazing the design was. And he kept talking about the design, and at some point says, well, that evolution's a good designer. Boy. But what's the reality of what happens in evolution? And the reality is that their theory, this theory, I think, is so much pseudoscience. Really? 5 minutes? I guess I had a 3-hour seminar ready. Okay, well, we'll skip the other 2 topics. Dissent really is not tolerated. And if somebody really starts down the path where they've got evidence that prove evolution is endangered, then the funding gets pulled and their research is stopped, their positions are terminated. And this is especially true these days where some scientists have gotten disenchanted with this, people like Mike Oard, and said, hey, we need an alternative theory. We need to look at the idea of intelligent design. How would that hypothesis fit with the facts? And so that's sort of our new theory. Again, I'm running out of time. What I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to skip to a couple of specific things here. I kind of went through and discussed intelligent design in the same way, looking at those three different criteria. One thing that's interesting, one of the big attacks on intelligent design has been done through the courts. And so now they have supposedly independent judges, people that are independently deciding, but they've got no real knowledge of the scientific method. And so, interestingly enough, they won't even allow a discussion of the scientific method. This one case, Kitzmiller versus Dover, what the opponents did, well, what the proponents of evolution did is they went out and they found that some of the same people that have been doing research in intelligent design that are now doing that research were also people that had been interested in creation science before. And so they said, oh, it's just warmed over science, and then they ended up getting this judge to rule against them. Michael Behe thinks it's interesting, in the end, does not impact the realities of biologies, which are not amenable to education. You can't let a judge cannot decide what is true in science. And I am going to have to skip global warming. I will not have time to talk about it, but you're going to hear lots about it tonight. So come to the. Okay, but one of the things that's coming out of global warming, and it's actually an interesting thing, the thing that is similar in global warming is it's the same methods that are used to promote science. We have the same storytelling. We have the same reliance on modeling. And in fact, what is called sort of official science, which I'm not sure where that comes from exactly, they're making attempts to replace evidence and facts and evidentiary way to obtain these things with modeling. And so, and a lot of the reliance of the people like the IPCC and the EPA even, they're replacing the empirical data with a lot of these models. As if they could replace and equate empirical data and the product of empirical methodologies. That's a dangerous corollary to the myth of global warming. And that's the problem. It's a pseudoscience as well, global warming is. You can omit the various facts. You can show pictures of polar bears, and you can show pictures of icebergs caused because of something is melting. But then if you carefully don't show the fact that the polar bear population is increasing, and that there's places where ice is gathering, where the glaciers are building, you can show one fact and omit the other. So it's the same kind of thing. So interestingly enough, our government, many of the government agencies have adopted these positions. The National Academy of Sciences, the National Science Foundation. I went to a meeting in 2007 of the American Astronomical Society, and they had a whole session on, is intelligent design pseudoscience? I thought it was inappropriate, actually, that they would be doing that. But they were adopting these positions of these big national organizations. And they have clear positions on evolution, intelligent design, global warming. These have become political positions. They're political agendas. And their methods, they do personal attacks on opponents. They distort the evidence. There's two recent examples where NASA changed the data that they had on their website that they presented. In one case, they said that 2009 was going to be the warmest year in 10 years. And when they reanalyzed the data, they found that for all of Russia, the September data had been copied to October. And that's right when it's cooling pretty rapidly. And so that naturally biased the whole, but they released all the results, big press releases that, oh look, global warming is 10 times worse than that. They're testified before Congress, and yet they discover it was all, oh well, it was all an accident. But they didn't discover it until somebody skeptical looked at the data in more detail. They rely on the modeling rather than the data. In many cases, they won't address the evidence at all, just because they can't. And so they ignore these failed validations. And so this is another quote I thought was interesting. Today it's just spin perhaps tomorrow the hard sciences will go the way of the softer sciences and suppress any evidence that is believed to undermine the cherished outlook of the establishment. So can we still do science? I think the reputation of science is severely tarnished. I don't think we can trust any of the organizations. At this point, I would never join as a scientist any of the National Academy of Sciences or any of those that are affiliated with those. It would tarnish my reputation, because I want to be something that's trying to look at objective facts. At this point, I think they're even fudging the data. They're going back and revising old data. I think we've seen this thing with ClimateGate happening in England, and really that's a worldwide phenomenon. I think that they're so determined to stick with this conclusion that they really have. I don't know. We're going backwards in science. I think that's what I call the end of science. And the same methods for promoting evolution or creation are now used for global warming and other political agendas. So look out. That's what we're going to see coming forward. I think science, you could call it dead, but we can still use the scientific method. In fact, the scientific method is still a very powerful method. And you can use it even in a Bible study. You can use it in everything you do in order to do that. But recognize that I think science these days is being used as a tool as a political tool to affect certain political agendas, but it's involved in the education of our children. They're revising our history in order to try and be more consistent with that. We're finding laws passed that are the result of some of these pseudoscientific theories, and some of them I think are even coming very close to impacting our individual liberty. And over time with that, I'll leave it. Thank you.